Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the podcast about how to make you successful. My name is Matt Williams. Thank you for listening to the show. We are part of the Fight, Laugh, Feast network. Go over to fightlaughfeast.com, become a member, put in HtBT in the memo field like so many of you have done this last weekend. Just put in an order for the mug shipments. I really appreciate your support coming alongside of us as we proclaim the Lordship of Jesus in every area of life. I'm also going to have a blog that's going to be coming out, my first ever blog. I've never done it before, so I am a podcaster and a blogger now. Just add in those credentials to the title. I will tell you more when I know the date that it's actually going to be released, but it is down to my second submission. Big thank you to Jesse Sumter, the editor for the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. Had some great feedback and just does a really great job over there. So I'm really excited to get a blog out there. It's going to be painful. I know I'm going to get a lot of criticism, but I'm okay. I'm getting that thicker skin, putting on the thick skin lotion to really put on the scales so my feelings don't get hurt. But anyways, look for that. Yeah, my son's really excited about that in the background. I don't know if you heard him grunt, but he's starting to grunt. And it's adorable because he's my kid, but if he wasn't my kid, I don't know if I'd think it's adorable. Today we have a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of interesting things in the news we're going to get into in a moment. If you have any questions, comments, anything you want me to cover, any advice that you are looking for, any recommendations for your career or all that good stuff, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I love hearing from every single one of you. Find me on the social media sites, How to Build a Tent. We also live stream the show. You can find me on YouTube at How to Build a Tent. I'm looking at my phone right now. I see a bunch of Google Analytics stuff, but what I really wanted to find, and I don't know why I'm not finding it right now. Oh, it's because I'm in the wrong section altogether. My social media section, I just launched a How to Build a Tent site on Minds, M-I-N-D-S. There is a cryptocurrency element to this social media site, and it seems kind of cool. So check that out, see what you think about it, and it might be a new up-and-coming social media site. Like we talked about before, there's tons of them, and we don't need another one, but it's good to get familiar with some of them and to see what you like, because with how many there are, there's a bunch of differentiators between them. And it might be one that you like. So if you want to check out a new social media site just to see what it's like, go over to Minds, check them out, and look me up, give me a follow, like, or whatever it is on Minds. I don't even know what it is to follow somebody. It's probably something like follow. Thank you to Marcus Pittman for making that suggestion on his page. Really recommend you follow his page if you are interested in all about economics, biblical justice, just a lot of interesting opinions. Marcus Pittman has a lot of great opinions. He's also on the Fight, Laugh, Feast network. Go check him out. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is Barclays. No, they're kind of a big deal, kind of a big bank. If you're a soccer fan, you no doubt know who they are. They sponsor a lot of world soccer things. And they had an economist, Michael O'Gapin, who came out and said something really interesting to me that I did not expect any economist to say right now. And this is Barclays, I think they're in England. They're in Europe somewhere. At least they're stationed there. And so they're not necessarily even an American company, so they don't really have, a political dog in the fight, per se, any more so than any other company does in America. And they said this: the April employment report points to an economy that remains in expansion phase, as opposed to stall or recession. And that was striking to me because even with how I've been talking about the future of the economy, where we are at with our economy as a whole in the United States, I've been thinking of it as a stall or maybe even a slight slowdown, not a recession, but just a slower down in performance. And I've been talking, and we've kind of been going back and forth discussing how much of a slowdown there would be year over year. But they are saying, and this economist is taking the position that we're actually in an expansion phase, that we might even be growing more than we did in 2018. And I just think that's really exciting. And again, it doesn't mean it's true. We don't really know. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and not one man holds all the knowledge and power, or they would be the richest man in the world, not Jeff Bezos. But I bring it up because I want us to be reminding ourselves that the economy is really good. and if it's going to stall or just slow down a little bit to an expansion like this economist says, let's keep that in front of mind, because all the media out there has a negative bent. Like, how much are we going to slow down? Oh, we're in recessions all around the corner. And I think a lot of that has bias in it of wanting Trump to fail, wanting Obama to look better from his presidency, and a whole bunch of other things. And I think we kind of get a distorted view. And it's important as business people, as we're planning our businesses, as we're planning our projections, as we're thinking of starting businesses, as we're investing our finances, to just be aware of that it's not all negative, and to look for the capitalization of that on the news when bad things happen. Just like the last 2 days with these trade wars that we'll get into in a second. I don't know if you've looked at your portfolio the past couple days. Don't. Give it a couple weeks, or give it a couple days more before you go look back at it again, unless you have like some options expiring really soon. Then you might want to take a gander. But a gander, it's like the goose and the gander. Oh, that's a terrible word. Take a look at your portfolio. I don't want to say gander ever again on this show. But other than that, just give it a few, because you know the stock market is extremely emotional, and it's not really about fundamentals a lot of times. And they definitely have been taking this trade war threat really seriously, and stocks have been just tanking. And we'll get into that in a second, but I wanted to say this also about some news that came out for a company that is in the real estate space. And I was reading some of the news that was coming out from them, and they said this, that actually right now the housing market is going to be experiencing in the future growth, because the baby boomers are heating up buying, but also there's going to be a new millennial wave that's coming around the corner that they expect, that is going to have housing prices pick up as well. And housing prices is a very interesting animal, like what we've talked about before, because the Federal Reserve now owns mortgage-backed securities, which they've never done before the 2008 crash. So what does that do to housing prices? Does that create a bubble? How big is the bubble? Is there a bubble? What areas does that bubble cover? Some areas it might not cover a bubble. And what does that mean for the housing prices? Interest rates and where they're at, how are they going to be impacting housing prices? So there's a lot of stuff that's going on there, but it's interesting to see another report of some positive trends coming in the future. For those of you who are looking to buy a house, might be something interesting. I know that interest rates dropped dramatically a little last couple of weeks, so it might be a good time to refinance again. And it seems like they keep dropping, and the Fed did not, even though the Fed did not lower rates. And this is funny too. The Fed came out and said they weren't going to lower rates, and then I was like, they weren't going to raise rates. And I was like, oh sweet, stock market's going to love that. And then the stock market dipped, and this was like last week. And it dipped, and I was like, why did it dip? And it turned out that people were thinking that the Federal Reserve was going to lower interest rates again. And I was kind of confused by that, because I didn't think they were going to lower rates. I just thought they weren't going to raise them anymore, and I thought we were going to all be happy about that. I don't know if we need to lower rates right now. I feel like we're doing pretty well. I know Trump wants us to lower rates, and that'll just give the economy a heroin shot. But I don't know if we need it. I mean, the economy's going really well. We don't need the Feds doing anything. Just stop. Don't ever do anything again. Figure out what you're doing with that balance sheet, and then just walk away. That would be my dream scenario. So housing market looks really good coming up as well. Now, okay, this article from Bloomberg, not really your conservative bastion of thought, has this headline: China is losing its grip on companies due to Trump's trade war. And what does this mean? That means that Trump is getting more and more leverage. And how so? And they talk about in this article how there are tech companies, lots of them, and they name one, Delta Electronics Inc., where they are a key supplier for a bunch of different electronic parts, that they're shifting away from China and just leaving. And they're going to Thailand and Taiwan. They're making an exit like American businesses are exiting California and New York, quick and fast. And that's really interesting, because if the Chinese are already losing companies wanting to produce there regardless of the trade war situation, then that's giving the Trump administration a lot more leverage to do things like threaten higher tariffs like they just did. And even though the stock market threatened that, and we kind of talked about it yesterday, so I won't get into it too much. But even though the stock market took a hit, we have to realize that Trump is not a dumb person, and he is really good at negotiating. And he does not say something like that unless he can back it up, unless he realizes that he has the leverage. The Chinese were thinking of backing out of some promises they made, some concessions they made in these talks, and so he ups the ante, and he's making them come back and earn it, which I think is a really good move. And as long as companies start thinking strategically and realizing Chinese aren't your friends and looking to produce in other places, that is going to turn out well. So I am not scared. I'm not worried about how much money we lost the last couple of days. And if you haven't looked at your portfolio in the last couple of days, then don't even think about how much money you lost. And just go back, check it out in a couple of days, and I'm sure things will recover. And if not, I will be on a show in a couple of days crying, and then you'll know that it's time to check your portfolio. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's a lot of good things happening, and I am still in the stock market because of that. Another thing I wanted to bring up that I heard about is Google's making some changes to their cookie policy and their AdWords. I actually got an email from their AdWords of how they're making some changes, and this is really important. It's funny, like you think in the ocean, there's these big whales and these big creatures there, and then there's these little fish that kind of like feed and survive based on like feeding off of the things they eat. I don't know how it really works, but basically it's a symbiotic relationship where I think that's the right word, I'm not a biology major, but basically they depend on these big creatures. And if the big creatures live, these guys live. If the big creatures die, if they change habits and these little creatures can't adjust and adapt, then they are in trouble and they end up dying. And that's really true in business. There's these big companies, Facebook, Google, Apple, and when they make these policy changes, when they make these algorithm changes, it can devastate companies. It can ruin them. It can make them go it can make them go into bankruptcy is what I meant. But I kind of was thinking out of business, bankruptcy, same thing. And I bring that up because if you have one of those businesses where you rely on cookies, if you rely on AdWords, if you are heavily invested in search engine optimization, it looks like there's some changes that are going to be happening. You might want to be aware of. Take some precautionary measures, take some preemptive measures, and see if you can start getting some people involved, engaging, hiring consultants, whatever you do to upgrade and to change your strategies based on that. If you use cookies, AdWords, or just the SEO in general, you should just kind of have an understanding that SEO and the algorithms of Google and all those big search engines use are going to be changing. So you want to have a strategy where you're continually looking to improve and implement new changes to that. You shouldn't just say, okay, I figured it out and I'm done, because it's ever changing. And also, I wanted to bring that up because maybe there can be some opportunity to look for new ways to get a competitive edge with these new changes, figure it out first, and make those changes to get ahead. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today, I'm going to take a drink of water. I don't want to cough on the show. That's just rude. That's rude on my behalf to you guys. I finally incorporated this podcast. You're like, what are you talking about? You finally incorporated this podcast. Like, you're a businessman. Shouldn't you have done that in the beginning? Well, I was just kind of, not really taking this seriously. No, that's not true. That's not what I mean. I wasn't doing this to really bring in any money. I played around with some advertising a while ago. Some of you may know. But there's going to be a new website coming out. We are going to have a lot of great features for you to subscribe to that are going to be a financial benefit, hopefully, to you guys. Maybe I'll show you. You'll be able to subscribe, see my portfolio, see the stocks I'm investing in, and just kind of get an insight into my strategies that I'm playing around with. And some other stuff. I'm thinking of doing some revenue sharing where you could get a percentage of just how well we do together. So it's something that we can grow this together and you guys can get some money. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. I mean, maybe even the subscription would pay for itself for you guys if we grow fast enough. And there's just a lot of different things I'm looking for and adding to that would provide value for you guys as well. So anyways, I'm incorporating, and I did the legal Zoom thing for the first time. usually, or not usually, I have a lot of lawyer friends, and usually I just use them, I trust them. But I wanted to go through the experience so I could tell you guys, hey, LegalZoom was a good experience, it was a bad experience. I filed the company as an S Corp in Delaware, and I had to get an agent from Delaware, so I have to pay that $50 fee. It's like 45, 50 bucks depending on who you go with, because you need to have an address in Delaware, and you can do it that way. And I went through the process, and I just have to say the process was absolutely great. I thought the experience was really well built, and the UX UI was fantastic. It had a lot of good explanations. They had some great verbiage to give you some recommendations without making it seem like legal advice. And just to let you know, if you do use LegalZoom, and they're not a sponsor of the show, I don't have sponsors of the show, so I just freely give compliments or critiques of businesses on the show. But just so you know, LegalZoom, like they'll say in like little gray, I think it was, like most people issue 10,000 shares of stocks, or most people issue a price of 0.001 cent per share. Like just do it, do what they say. Don't try to do it like, oh, 10,000? No, I'm gonna do 5,000 or whatever. They're giving you advice without giving you legal advice. And whenever you can get that kind of advice for free, just take it on LegalZoom. So I'd actually really recommend it if you're looking to file a business, you don't want to pay the lawyer. I think I paid like 750 bucks, 780 bucks. And that include the filing fees for Delaware. Depending on what state you file in, there can be different fees for that. But that's basically how much I paid. A really good experience. I'm gonna be getting the documents. There was some confusion because I'm like in transition, so I had the documents sent to a California address, because I'm going to be visiting there for a while before I make the full trip to Florida. And I have my billing address in Hawaii, and then I have my permanent address in Florida, and then I have the business registered in Delaware. I was on the phone with them trying to get that figured out because I had to clarify the payment address. And they're like, man, you're a traveling man. I'm like, well, I guess I am. But all that to say this is LegalZoom was a pretty good experience, and I will let you know when I get all of the incorporated documents back and all of those things, make sure they did it all right. But just the first impression of doing them today, I really recommended them. And the last thing that I wanted to say about it is because one of the things I had to do is I had to call my bank, which just happened. Well, I have, how many banks do I? I think I have accounts in 4 different banks. 4 different banks, but one of them was Chase. And I was on the phone with them making sure that everything was cool. And one of the things that they said was, your voice may be used for identification purposes. And it almost like just went by, like I was thinking it was, we may record this call for customer service experience. And then they said it again, and it's like, wow. So Chase is getting to a point from a security perspective where they have your voice on record and are matching it with the voice on the phone. And I'm sure there's some AI involved there, where there's some algorithm that is matching your voice that they have on record with the voice that is on the phone. And some people might be like, oh my gosh, that's scary. That's like end times thinking. But I'm really stoked about it. I'm excited about it because that just makes it that much harder for thieves, for identity theft, for all of those kinds of things to happen over the phone. And it's just really awesome to see where we were going to be. And it made me start to wonder, like, are we going to get to a place anytime soon where identity theft just cannot happen? And like, that's kind of a bold statement, and I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not saying it will happen. But thinking about it, like with technology and how good it's getting, with new advances in blockchain. A blockchain it's the cryptocurrency technology that allows cryptocurrency to exchange and be diversified and de-siloed, where individual or like everyone basically agrees on the same ledger, and it's not just one source, one server, one company that holds all the information, but 1,000 different people do, or 1 million people do, depending on how big the blockchain is. But blockchain technology is being used for a lot more than just the currency's sake. And one of the big use cases for it, it seems to be, is identity protection and security. And so those kinds of things as well, like this new technology. In theory, there seems to be a point where technology is going to get so good that they will be able to determine through your voice, through biosecurity, through multi-factor authentication, blockchain, and like IP addresses, and just remembering your habits, your spending habits, your login habits, your computer habits, your ISP network, which is like your location in the computer world, your location. That stuff is going to be able to be working together in such a synergetic way that I could easily see, without sounding too nuts to myself, I don't think this is tinfoil hat stuff, where identity protection and identity theft is not going to exist anymore because of identity protection. I guess, hey, if you can be protected, then it's perfection, right? I think that is going to be an interesting time. At least it's going to become a lot less common than it is today, especially like in the real estate world. Real estate fraud is like a really big deal because it's a lot of money that's happening, and it's amazing how simple it is, how easy it is for anyone with the knowledge of the industry to be able to steal people's money. And I think a lot of it is because the industry is lagging behind in technology. But as the digital reformation, the digital economy starts to become full circle, and even in these antiquated industries like the real estate industry, those kinds of issues of wire fraud, identity theft, and all those things are going to start fading away and not being such a big deal. And that's really exciting because that's going to cut back on expenses, that's going to be cutting back on losses, and that is all going to help the economy as a whole generate more wealth, because that is kind of like the broken glass kind of a thing where it's not generating wealth, those kinds of expenditures. And you're going to be able to save that money and use it on capital investments in assets and wealth producing capital investments. So that is something that is really exciting about. So that is basically the stories that really perked my mind today. I hope these are going to be helpful for you. I hope that they were relevant to you. Now, let us go out and be successful together. God bless. Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the podcast. I can't even say podcast right when I do this. Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the podcast. The podcast?